What is atheism anyways? According to dictionary.reference.com, atheism is the doctrine or belief that there is no God, disbelief in the existence of a supreme being or beings. According to Webster's 9th New Collegiate Dictionary, which you may have at home as I do, atheism is a disbelief in the existence of deity, the doctrine that there is no deity. PhilosophyPages.com says that atheism is belief that God does not exist. Unlike the agnostic, who merely criticizes traditional arguments for the existence of a deity, the atheist must offer evidence. PhilosophyDictionary.org says that atheism is the denial of the existence of God. God does not exist. I think that going to philosophy dictionaries is probably a really good way to discover the meaning of atheism, since it's a very philosophically heavy, meaningful term. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, atheism means the negation of theism, the denial of the existence of God. These are all strong, assertive things. The University of Aberdeen's Glossary of Technical Terms also agrees and says that an atheist is someone who believes that there is no God. This doesn't seem like much of a debate, but what about some of the atheist websites? What do they say atheism is? On infidels.org, under the title What is Atheism?, it says atheism is characterized by an absence of belief in the existence of gods. At atheism.about.com, it is defined as not believing in any gods. These are very weak, very soft definitions of atheism. I wonder why.
Atheism. I don't think it means what you mean it to mean. Your words are confusing me when you put it that way. Why make it confusing when you can just say it plain? If you believe there is no God, just come out with a claim. Lack of belief in God makes your stance sound weak and lame. Atheism. You see that my baby's lacking a belief in God. Well, I can say the same thing about my lucky fishing rod. I don't need no big words to prove that concept wrong. So I thought I'd make fun of it, singing in this song. Atheism. Yeah. Philosophically, I think you may have missed. It's simply a lack of belief does not make an atheist. I'm not trying to make fun or suggest that we should hate. Just want to keep some other folks from making that mistake. Atheism.
You're listening to the Bible Thumping Wingnut Show, the show that's safe for the whole family. Unless your family contains professing atheists.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Bible Thumping Wingnut podcast. This is February 18th. My guest, Len Pettis, is with me. We are going to do as we promised. We're here to review the atheist experience. Matt Dillahunty and Don Baker are the hosts this evening, and they're starting right now. And they have 950 people watching already, Len. I'm going to turn their volume down while they play their intro.
Dude, that's crazy. 950 live viewers. And by the way, we are their target audience, right?
We are, according to their website. Their show is geared for non-atheists. It's for the Christian community. So how that so if their target is Christians, I don't know if they're hitting their goal of having atheists on viewing, because they have 56 thumbs up as they start.
So, atheists don't give thumbs up on videos.
That would be a positive claim.
Right. I'm a massive curling fan, and I don't care if somebody doesn't like that. How you doing? Welcome to Atheist Experience Live. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Don Baker.
Good to be here.
Woo-hoo. And there was much rejoicing. We tend to keep the announcements pretty short, but I just thought of an announcement that's important. The intro song is by Shelley Siegel, and if you go out to YouTube and search for her, everybody watching the show needs to go do this and do it on a semi-regular basis, because YouTube's changed this monetization thing, and she needs like 1,000 distinct views in a certain period of time in order to just stay monetized. And she's freaking awesome. And So go listen to that song. Go listen to one of her other songs. Yeah. Give Shelley some love, because she let us use that song. That's awesome. How have you been?
Just fine.
This is a live call-in show.
This goes to show you, Len, how hard technology is.
Yeah.
Their sound is horrible.
Yeah, and they're a way bigger outfit than we are.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard to get sound right. So here we go.
Sponsored by the atheist community of Austin, where we beat up on non-believers and idiots around the world. No, that's not the thing.
That's not really what we're about.
It's funny because when people pull clips out,
if that's not what they're all about, Len, why do they come out with these clips and label them ignorant believer gets humiliated,
right?
Or yeah, it's this whole masking idea that
right.
Oh, we're just here to help. We're just here to facilitate a discussion when it's not. It's
yep. We're just providing an important service to the world.
Let's see how he finishes that sentence.
Show there's Matt went on an epic rant or hung up on somebody or whatever, and I think it's because they don't want to post a highlight clip of the 45-minute call we had with somebody who was struggling and everything was an honest conversation,
debating about some obscure philosophical problem, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not good TV.
That's always going to happen. We have almost all of the lines are all full right now, and we've got folks we're going to get to. So if you're on hold, please just stay there. And Don has yet another failure
show, right?
Christianity.
Another topic. Number 54, the Christian influence in Texas. Wanted to take a look at the culture war and how it's been playing out in Texas. And some folks are saying, the culture war is over. Where do
those people live?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's over.
We live in like the most liberal city, I would say in Texas, but technically we're surrounded by Texas. We're not in Texas. Right. The only reason we let the governor live here is because that's where they built his house,
Yeah.
But I'm pumped.
Anyway, but Texas, is one of the states run primarily by Christian conservatives, and this has been going on a long time. And so you can kind of look at a little bit of what effect that's had for our state, and apply by their fruits ye shall know them, Matthew 7:16. And there is this kind of related to this. There's a paper called Cross-National Correlations of Quantifiable Social Health with Popular Religiosity and Secularism in Prosperous Democracies.
Now, let me see if I'm going to use my powers of deduction to determine why people haven't heard of this study.
Right.
This is exciting stuff. What do you think he's going to get to, Len?
They're obviously going to talk about pro-life issues, but if you're in Texas, you should just thank your conservative leadership for the fantastic economy that you have, for the joblessness. Like, oh man, it's so terrible here in Texas. All the Christians out here oppressing us. Look at the atheists being burned at the stake. Oh, it's terrible. You can still murder a baby in the womb in Texas. Last I checked.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is an alleged advocate of pro-life, and a lot of the legislature is, and it kind of permeates the culture here. And so how have things worked? Well, a big thing, the first thing you think of in Texas with pro-life is there's been all sorts of bans on abortions and restrictions on abortions.
Praise the Lord.
Allegedly, it's to protect human life, and human life is sacred, and all these things. And there's all sorts of laws, like there's a sonogram law that inserts the government between a woman and her doctor, and forces the doctor to show her a sonogram of the fetus.
He almost said baby, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did. That logic thing is a real problem. Real problem.
There's a law that fetal remains have to be buried or cremated. There's a law that's recent that eliminates insurance coverage for non-emergency abortions. There's a law that bans dilation and extraction for second trimester abortions. This goes
Matt's real interested.
Yep.
on and on. This is a big thing in this state, and the state funds religiously affiliated crisis pregnancy centers.
These are all
crisis
good.
Pregnancy
These are all good.
that give out false and misleading information.
What is the false and misleading information that's being given out exactly?
This is definitely an area where they've made a lot of progress in trying to beat up on women who want to have abortions and have
Turn off your phone.
abortion clinic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you know,
clinics.
hold just 1 second here. I think we need to start calling the I think we need to call pro-choice people, or instead of pro-murder or pro-abortion, because that doesn't bother them. We need to call them science deniers.
Oh,
you're a science denier if you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, because all of the science shows that is. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole argument, but okay. So let's keep listening to the science deniers.
All those laws are meant to beat up women who want to have abortions.
Of course.
Oh.
So
children are also at risk, and you know, if you're pro-life and you want to protect children, then presumably you want to protect their well-being. And Texas, unfortunately, has a broken child protective services program. There's been poor funding and oversight, a lot of turnover of the people working there, and it's been a festering problem for years and years. There's plenty of abuse and many deaths, and that's not something that seems to be addressed by the current legislature or any.
So this is gripping. I don't know how they maintain an audience, but they are. So he gave all the statistics for pro-life, and then said this is just to beat up women who want to have abortions. And then now he's talking about another category of government, another government category for child and protective services. Len,
yeah,
you're not listening to me.
Well,
my point is he's left the discussion about the pro-choice or pro-life.
Yeah.
In the recent past, there's a program called CHIP, which funds health insurance for kids. That funding is at risk in Texas. In Texas, we have very liberal gun laws. There's no legislation to protect kids from shooters.
I hope he's going to have a point.
Open carry is now legal at universities. And our own UT is home to a famous 1996 sniper incident that having more guns would never have helped, because he was way up on a tower, and he's a very good shooter.
That was not 1996.
1966, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
1966, quite a long time ago. And he was up in a sniper as a, shooting folks, and there was no way that anybody was going to get him except up close. Yet guns are not allowed at the Texas state capitol because they're very pro-life for their own lives. So if children are sacred and precious, why don't these?
I think Matt's getting bored.
They're also at risk. Texas has defunded reproductive and preventative health care for at-risk women that has harmed women's health.
Every Christian is saying yes and amen to this whole list. It's like I'm sorry that reality triggers you, you liberal, ignorant, atheist pinhead, but all of these things are better for the advancement of the well-being of others, which, that's the whole basis for atheist morality. Everything that he's talking about only makes life better. It's only better for the advancement of humankind. And this fool, this science-denying, God-hating truth denier should just be sitting there saying, thank you, Texas. But instead, logic is this man's enemy.
and not for the same reason that you're probably not.
Oh.
So when we say 35,000 per year get pregnant before 20, I don't think that statistic is particularly fair, because what we care about
Is the rate, right?
well, you can graduate high school, get married, and have been married for a year and a half by the time you're 20, just of your own volition. And I care more about what's happening prior to adulthood, prior to somebody being out on their own.
That's true.
So I think that's now it's still very high, and evidently in Waco there's nothing else for teenagers to do but go out and spread STDs.
Right. Well, and I have a quote: the Dallas and San Antonio areas, for example, had teen pregnancy rates 50 and 40% respectively higher than the national average. Yeah. So Texas is failing very clearly. Those same kids who are pregnant get poor support for reproductive care, and teen mothers are generally relegated to a life of poverty as their educations and careers are cut short because child rearing takes priority.
Oh, well, thank goodness we stopped teaching abstinence in school.
For sex education, we focus on abstinence only. In
This
Texas,
is just a random
no education at all,
rant.
and textbooks focus on
Right.
not proper use. On a completely
The
Now
nonsense.
it's going to go to a completely different topic.
Right. So the nonsense of all of this is like, oh, this is the fault of abstinence education. No, it isn't. This is the fault of Planned Parenthood, who gives free birth control away to kids who know it doesn't work. They know that if that birth control pill isn't taken at the exact same time every single day, the chance of failure goes up exponentially. They forget a day, they're probably going to get pregnant. So instead of teaching youth that the intelligent thing to do is to wait until you're married to have sex and do it the way God intended it, ruin your life and the life of a baby by getting pregnant. And, the safety net of the government will take care of you. What a terrible message. That's hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless. But it's the government's fault.
In Texas, the Texas death penalty is responsible for 1/3 of the national total of deaths.
There goes his
caused
sound.
By, the death penalty. Rick Perry's administration, when he was.
I don't know why they don't have him on all the time. I mean, he's really good.
Yeah.
Penalty is responsible for 1/3 of the national total of deaths.
The death penalty is what did he say?
I think he's basically saying like 1/3 of all death penalty deaths, because he's saying like the pool of deaths. So like the pool of all the deaths conducted under the death penalty state by state, 1/3 of them are done in Texas. Well, that's good. I mean, look, if due process has been done, all the appeals are exhausted. Save your taxpayers.
The death penalty. Rick Perry's administration, when he was governor here, executed 279 people. And Texas, ironically, is running out of the drug they use for executions, pentobarbital. And the manufacturer has stopped selling to Texas because they just say, you're using it for unintended purposes. And Texas is
What is the purpose for that fatal drug?
Yeah, hello.
I want to see if they get to a caller here. I'm going to try to move forward closer to real time, because this is just painful idiocy.
Okay. The crowd of people who are exaggerating statistics and engaging in hyperbole. I don't know how many times in the past week I saw that this was the 17th or 18th school shooting in 2018. No, it wasn't. It wasn't even close. You can go to Snopes and find out that depending on what statistics you actually use, there were somewhere between 5 or 7, and really only 2 that fit the public perception of, oh my gosh, there was another school shooting where somebody went in and shot.
Okay, let's get to a call.
Well, at least he's being honest there.
It doesn't happen at all in some of them.
All right, now it looks like they got their sound
Legislation, except that didn't happen either, because there's no legislation banning a god from a school or banning prayer from a school. It's a complete and utter misrepresentation. Worse, and it's going to hell in a handbasket. No, it's not.
What's that?
Just let it go.
Yeah, well, we're 20 minutes in and they haven't taken a caller yet.
The prevalence for the rate for these things is actually declining. We live in the best of all possible times. Read Steven Pinker's book, Better Angels, Raw Nature, or even better, go read his recent Wall Street Journal article that offers statistics showing that the world has improved in almost every measure for almost every person on the planet. And that puts perspective on it. Not so that we can pretend there's no problem, but so that we can accurately assess what the problem is, measure the risks and rewards, and figure out the best course of action to try to prevent this from happening. And I'm not going to claim that I know what it is, and I'm not interested in getting into a debate about it, in the course of this particular show. I want people to argue honestly. I hate bad arguments, and I hate them most when they're coming from the side that should be right and easily right. One is too many. That's all you need to say. On that note,
amen, Brother Matt.
Yes.
So a platitude is better than a bad argument. One is too many. Just give platitudinous nonsense.
No, that's good stuff. I agree, and I appreciate when you call me out on my mistakes.
Well,
because I learned from them.
It's not like I didn't make I made a mistake immediately after calling you out on your mistake. Okay. So. Welcome to the Mistake Show.
Yeah, we're all fallible.
We are godless heathens who are willing to acknowledge that we don't know, and we're also willing to acknowledge that we can make mistakes.
Tim, you gotta clip that.
As a reminder, after the show's over,
welcome to the Mistake Show.
They'll put the address. I think we're still going to Star of India, and it's 2900 West Anderson Lane. And if I'm wrong, they'll put something else up.
Yummy buffet.
But we've got Journey in Asheville, North Carolina, which is probably my wife's favorite town. Are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. It's nice. Am I talking to Matt?
You're talking to Matt and Don, and we're told that you have a proof for God.
Oh, dear. Here we go.
We love those.
Yeah, I guess we should start. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God.
Okay. Is that in any way tied to your proof for God? Because simply quoting a Bible.
G-O-D. Do you...
I'm sorry.
That the word G-O-D.
Well, he won't even let him finishes that.
Well, yeah.
Exists. God exists. The word is. That's the proof.
Seriously, you called. Hang on. You called in and said you had proof for God, and your proof is that there's a word?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Unicorns exist.
Exactly.
There you go. That's a great argument. I love that unicorn exists argument. They can't make an argument from the atheist position, so they'll pretend that they believe in unicorns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, that's correct.
Here's okay. So words, language exist, and words and language presume knowledge and truth. Okay, so that is indeed an evidence for the existence of God. It's a presuppositional apologetic, if you will. But unfortunately, the caller, who I get a feeling most of these callers that like this are plants. I get a feeling like this is Matt Delahunty's third cousin or something who's calling in.
Yeah.
Like, hey, just call in and make the dumbest atheist, claim to be a Christian and just sound as ignorant as possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I apologize to everybody. That's a big waste of time. I have 6 phone lines here with theists on a number of them. I don't know whether that was just a quick joke or what, but we are all dumber for having listened to it.
This is a show geared for Christians.
Yes.
They're very patient. They really want to reach as many Christians as they can.
Right. They're very helpful. Evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Stephen in Tokyo. Thanks for waiting through that last call and what came before.
No, that was hilarious.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
You had a question for us, I believe.
Yeah, I guess I just want to know, or I guess my question is, why is it that atheists don't believe in God?
Again, This guy never watched the show?
It's possible he may have never watched the show, and they're looking at each other like, you want to take this one for the 400th time? I mean, it's a lot like Slick Answers. A lot of people came into Slick Answers, and how many times did you hear, so what's your evidence that God exists? So I'm sure it's no different for them too, to some degree.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been presented with sufficient evidence to warrant the belief. And it would also help too to define whatever God you're talking about. Because in my years on this show, I've found that pretty much every caller has a different idea.
Some of them just think it's a word.
I guess I just mean like a creator of the universe.
Sure. I can tell you this. I used to be a Southern Baptist. I used to be a believer in some version of the Christian God, and I'm not now, because I found out that the reasons that I have for believing were either fallacious or flat out wrong or unwarranted. And that prompted a bunch of study and investigation, because I wanted to find out, okay, maybe this Christianity isn't real, but, you know, could there be some kind of God, and what kind of God could there be? And over the years, I kind of explored this issue from both the standpoint of science and philosophy. What kind of God could there be? And it left me with the conclusion that there's no good reason to think that anything that we would normally consider to be a God actually exists. And in some cases, there's no reason to think it's even possible for that thing to exist.
Okay, well, I get your argument about like the Judeo-Christian God.
Any God.
But it's still,
like, okay, you asked about just like a creator God, something that created everything. What reason is there to think that there is a being, a God, that created everything?
Well, I mean, it's like, how else did everything get here?
So that's a fallacy.
Called the argument from ignorance.
Called the argument from ignorance. Essentially, that the explanation or the God proposal stands until it's proved wrong. In your case, the way it's formulated, Richard Dawkins would call it an argument from personal incredulity, that you can't think of any better explanation than God. But to say, there's a way, let me frame it this way. There's been a murder, and Don comes to me and says, the butler did it. And I say, oh, what evidence or reason is there to think that the butler did it? And Don says to me, who else could it have been?
Okay, but
I mean, do you think that's going to stand up? That's not even going to get a trial. The DA is going to laugh your ass right out of the office. And that's why I think that we should do the same thing. The burden of proof is on the people who are claiming that there is a God, or that there must be a God. And they, for millennia, have failed to meet that burden of proof. And that's why I can't believe.
I understand that, but you don't think that, well, okay, so back when I was a teenager, I used to listen to the show all the time, and I was an atheist for like 3 years. And then I thought about it, and I was like, how can there be like literally an infinite universe?
Who says there is?
But
who says there is anything, Matt? We know from dealing with Matt that his form of skepticism leaves you with absurdity. What he's looking for in evidence, he doesn't even know what he's looking for. Because if you asked him what kind of evidence would suffice for you, I don't know. And then if you turn his logic around on him, he can't even give you any believable evidence that anybody exists outside of his own head, outside of his own brain.
Well, right. And that's the thing, is that, look, you can call that an argument from incredulity, that, you know, which, by the way, saying the butler did it because who else would it be? That is not what we're saying. That is not what any Christian says. But I mean, you can't explain anything. You can't. So he said he hasn't seen enough evidence. Well, evidence presumes truth. There's a presumption of truth when you talk about evidence and proof. And you can't even know what truth is. What is true? And how do you know what is true?
By his own admission, he can't know what is true.
Absolutely not. He really can't.
I know, but I mean, there's nothing behind it. Like, oh, it's just here for no reason. Like,
What makes you think that that's not possible? Even whether or not that's actually the case, what makes you think that that's not possible?
Because what's the difference between that and then having nothing exist at all?
Well, nothing isn't something that could exist because nothing isn't something. It may be the case that it is impossible for there to have ever been a nothing because that has no properties.
You're waving at me, Len?
But according to Richard Dawkins, nothing is something.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? I mean, who is the physicist, the theoretical physicist? Lawrence Krauss. Didn't he write a book about something coming from nothing and how nothing actually is something?
Well, I think right now I would have to say that atheists don't exist because none of them can agree on anything. So obviously.
Right. It can't possibly be true because...
Yeah.
But atheism isn't a worldview, Tim. It's not a worldview. We just have shows about it and we revolve our entire lives around it. We proselytize it, but, you know, it's not a worldview.
But I think the intellectually honest answer is...
Intellectually honest. Why is honesty important?
Right. What obligation does he have to be honest with anybody in a conversation about anything? You know, that we're getting down to morality here. How do we know? What reason do these two have to represent atheism in an honest fashion?
Or their own positions. And,
right.
We know that the way Matt admittedly lives his life is he will tell a lie to someone if it will make that person happy.
We have that clip, don't we? I mean, yeah. he definitely said it, and I think it was on this show.
He would lie to his grandmother or mother or somebody who was passing away and say that he believes in Jesus to make her happy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a person who's utterly void of anything that even resembles integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and maybe I'll go try to find out, but until I know, I'm going to withhold belief.
Yeah, we know there's something. And so the question you're trying to answer is, why is there something instead of nothing? Or where did all this something come from?
That is the question.
If you don't have an explanation, then the only answer that is...
Wait a second. Did he?
But I think the intellectually honest answer is,
we know there's something?
I don't know, and maybe I'll go try to find out. But until I know, I'm going to withhold belief.
Yeah, we know there's something.
Oh, we do? Oh. How do we know that?
Wait a minute. He had a whole debate with Seichen Bruggencate claiming he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
He's saying, I know anything.
Right. We know there's something. How do we know there's something?
How long did that take? 35 minutes in for him to completely refute his whole debate. So they can't be consistent.
No.
They can't be consistent.
And that, you know, the downside of debates is that very few people have the intellectual wherewithal to sit through, listen critically, and deconstruct things like this, where which side is being consistent, which side is being honest with the other side's arguments. You know, and in his debate with Cy, I would guess that maybe 5 to 10% of his audience even saw that. I guarantee you the majority of the people who watched that debate were Christians. Even though in that room there were a lot of atheists, let's face it, those people weren't listening. No. They were there for the yucks, for the beers. Beers and cheers.
So the question you're trying to answer is, why is there something instead of nothing? Or where did all this something come from? And if you don't have an explanation, then the only answer that is reasonable is to say, I don't know. It is not reasonable to say, man, I can't think of anything other than this hypothetical God model, so I'll just go with that, because that's not the way reason works.
I don't need you to explain everything. Just explain one thing. Just account for one thing. You know, why is there something instead of nothing? I'm not asking you to explain everything. Explain one molecule. Explain one photon.
Explain life.
Right.
Explain life existing. Explain why there is a right and a wrong. There's no explanation for anything.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I mean, But it's more than that, though. It's not that there's just like stuff. It's just that like there's a whole universe and like the ecosystem, how everything seems kind of like everything does like work together, like in synchronicity, or what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know what the word, maybe synchronicity, but I don't know how that applies.
Seems like you're giving also another argument from ignorance, but changing the topic to biology.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at the whole of the universe, Stephen Hawking has pointed out that if the universe is fine-tuned for anything, it's for the creation of black holes. And the overwhelming majority of the universe is incredibly hostile to life.
Yeah, but even besides life, though, I'm just seeing like stars and stuff.
So if the whole universe is hostile to life, how could this thing of evolution be and human beings, how can our point in evolution be to thrive if everything is designed to be destroyed?
Right. Well, I mean, so basically the caller is making an argument from fine tuning, and all they're doing is being dismissive. They're not doing anything. Neither of these men are doing anything to refute what are basic, simple, evidential apologetic arguments. They're not saying anything of substance or meaning. They're just being dismissive. They're not making it. They're not saying anything meaningful. Think about what it is that they've said thus far. And like you said, okay, so the universe is, if the universe is fine-tuned for anything, it's black holes. Well, what evidence for that have you examined? Because Stephen Hawking said it, I have to take that as gospel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, the law of entropy and the second law of thermodynamics is a real thing, and yet, right, the atheistic types like this will talk about the progression of life and the advancement of evolution and humankind and things like that. Well, how can that be true if the second law of thermodynamics is also true? Like, these are not points that you just dismiss and say, well, that's an argument from ignorance. No, it's an argument you have to answer. You have to give an answer for, because it's not like I'm saying these things are real, therefore God exists. The claim is that God exists, and because of who he is and his character and his word, these things are also true. That's the argument. And they've done nothing to refute it. Now, I'm not saying that this caller is doing a good job laying out his argumentation, but listen to the lack of substance and how what they're saying is utterly void of anything intelligent or useful.
How like the stars can like juggle planets and stuff like that, and like you don't think that it's kind of like, it just seems that
there's this thing called gravity, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is just what the way gravity works.
Oh,
if
well,
you want to assert God made gravity, then you also have the burden of proof there.
Yeah.
So, no. Pause it. No, you're saying that gravity exists, and that's just the way that it is. All you're doing is making bald-faced assertions with absolutely no evidence for anything. I can say, well, God exists, and that's just the way it is. And that would be as veracious as the claims that they're making.
Yeah, how does he know?
Yeah, exactly.
You can turn around his skepticism and
right,
make it so he can't even prove gravity exists.
And the thing is, what we're talking about now with biology and science, we're talking about why is a scientific method even a trustworthy thing? Why does water boil at 212 degrees at sea level every single time? You know, these guys are so dumb. I just hate to put it that way, but it's so incredibly frustrating. Someone in chat asks, why not call in? We don't have to call in. We're refuting them live.
Yeah, they're talking about me in the chat right now, us in the chat, but because I said atheist fail in their chat comments. What? And then somebody claimed that Matt has explained his moral model with nothing but, of course, I've watched that presentation. What's it called? Why secular morals are better than
pure conjecture.
Just assuming,
Yep.
I mean, just because you say that human flourishing is a good idea
With no basis or foundation.
There's no reason to
Yep.
gravity can be. Alex says gravity can be demonstrated. How do you know?
Yeah.
How can you trust your experiences?
Right.
How do you know you're not being deceived?
Exactly.
Doesn't it seem like, how am I going to say this?
We are very fortunate, right? You're going to say we're fortunate because we live and we exist and we have some understanding of ourselves and the universe and our place in it. And gosh, isn't that miraculous? Is that kind of where you're going?
Not even us. I just mean just exist. Like, doesn't it seem that it's too, I don't want to say too, it's too, like, I don't know, like synchronized to be a coincidence. Like, how could it just be that all this stuff just appeared and then it works together?
Now they know he's using the intelligent design argument.
Right.
They know that, but they're not like helping him out at all. He's not even mentioning it.
That's not an accurate description. It's not like all this stuff just disappeared. Okay, you have the laws of physics that govern the interactions of atoms and matter and everything. And over a great deal of time, things change.
Okay, so obviously Matt is a person who's never spent more than 3 minutes on Wikipedia reading about physics. Okay, so he's making claims out of pure, utter, and abject ignorance here. Like, what have you studied about physics? Okay, maybe you've read Lawrence Krauss or Neil deGrasse Tyson, maybe, but why do you believe them? If you have read them, why do you believe them? What claims have you actually studied out on your own, right? But listen to like the kindergarten arguments, like, okay, there's this thing called physics, and then there's time, and things just happen. Like, these people, this is what atheists have to look to as their authority for the defense of their position, or the advancement of it, because that's what it's about, advancing atheism, whether they want to admit it or not. This is a evangelical show, and how can an atheist who is reasonable or logical look at this and say, yep, these guys represent, they represent me. That's who I want in my corner.
We are what evolved under these particular circumstances. If the model of the universe had been slightly different, and
okay, this is something I addressed last week. This is the atheist magic, time and chance. It's science doesn't show what they want it to show, so they come up with this time and chance and the claim that 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 does equal something,
right?
And I would encourage people to go and watch that video I made last week about Tracy Harris. 7 times Tracy Harris went beast mode, because that was one of her arguments.
Yeah.
And then something else might have evolved, and it would be sitting here going, wow, isn't it neat that this universe seems designed for me? No, the universe wasn't designed for you. The universe constructed you because you're the thing that could fit in the universe, in this particular pocket of the universe, space.
He just made a truth claim. That is a flat out truth claim he just made. That is a denial that God created all things. So he doesn't usually like to make truth claims, but he just did. He made a truth claim that he can't support.
It's all such nonsense.
Honestly. I didn't know how long you would go with this, but how are you going to do this week after week, Len?
It's going to be toil. This is going to be look, this is the kiddie pool of apologetics, right? Yeah. We're not in the deep end here.
We don't have to do any homework.
There's no prep work required to refute this nonsense. This is all just like, but the problem is, because American evangelicals are fairly lazy and teaching is also very kiddie pool. This stuff is compelling. This stuff is compelling to people who are kind of, you know, that speed, I guess.
And the atheists that come and watch our video aren't much more bright. The comment was just left, the morality takes human flourishing as a quote unquote foundation. If you agree with it, then you can argue for logical conclusions from it. There is no reason for valuing such a thing. It is just a belief.
Right. It's axiomatic for them.
Just people, though. I just mean the fact that
it doesn't just apply to people. It applies to everything. It applies to, you know, hydrogen and oxygen combining to make water. That's all governed by physics. It's chemistry. There's no reason to appeal to anything beyond the laws of physics or chemistry. And even if you don't have an
excellent. I'm glad he said that.
Yes.
The point that he's making is that we're just products, Len, of
right.
the universe.
Yep.
There's no reason to appeal to anything else. So all there is, folks, there is no soul. All there is inside of your head is a muscle,
right? Meat. Yep.
And there's nothing else.
You are stardust dancing to your DNA.
Right.
That's
so
it.
There on that foundation that he just built of sand, there's no right and wrong.
Right. There's just
that whole rant in the beginning about statistics and pro-life and abortion rights and guns and people shooting up schools.
Preach.
That's all there is, Matt. That guy, that Cruz kid who shot up the school, that's not right or wrong. That's just him, product of the universe, doing what he's supposed to do.
He is just chemically and biologically determined to do so, and he couldn't have done any differently. That's it. That's all there is to it. I mean, look, there's physics. That's all there is. There's physics.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to go beyond the natural, you need to first demonstrate that there is something beyond the natural that could be an explanation. Because otherwise, you're saying, "Wow, it just seems so odd that, you know, stars and planets and life and all this other stuff," and you're like, "It seems to me the best explanation is a God." Well, why isn't the best explanation universe creating pixies? Why isn't the best explanation that the physical laws of the universe produce?
No, because nobody's making that argument.
Okay, but here's the interesting thing. The physical laws of the universe, back up like 10 seconds and play this through, because I think he's about to be really self-refuting here.
Physics, it's chemistry. There's no reason to appeal to anything beyond the laws of physics or chemistry. And even if you don't have an explanation and you want to go beyond the natural, you need to first demonstrate that there is something beyond the natural that could be an explanation. Because otherwise, you're saying, "Wow, it just seems so odd that, you know, stars and planets and life and all this other stuff," and you're like, "It seems to me the best explanation is a God." Well, why isn't the best explanation universe creating pixies? Why isn't the best explanation that the physical laws of the universe produce this, which is what science seems to show?
Okay, stop right there. The physical laws of the universe produced this. What is this? The universe? So so he's looking the physical laws of the universe produced this. The this is what's so important. By this, we can presume he's talking about existence, everything, right? Yeah. So, and he's saying like, okay, well, there has to be something beyond the natural, and you have to demonstrate that there's a supernatural. But now here you are conceding that there are laws that transcend the natural, that are governing and guiding the universe, right? Like there's physics, there's logic, there's all of these different transcendent things. Okay, so the question for Matt is, did the laws of physics predate the universe? Or are the laws of physics a product of the universe? What happened? What's going on here, dude? Like, this is a really big area that they need to examine hardcore, because this is where the rubber meets the road right here, dude. And this is the massive inconsistency that I observe, is that he's saying that out of one side of his mouth, he's saying like, there's nothing beyond the natural. And by natural, I think if I've heard him right in debate, he denies being a naturalist only. And yet I've heard him deny the existence of a soul or a spirit also. But nonetheless, if the physical laws, such as physics, produced everything, where did those come from?
And people can look back at the discussion he did with Matt Slick on this channel.
Yeah,
because Matt Slick tried to get him to ask him those types of questions, and Matt's answers were, I don't know.
Bach.
Depends on what you mean by logic.
Right.
I don't know. Now you're looking at labels.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's continue.
Matt asked him if he was a naturalist or something else. He's like, well, now you want to put labels on things.
Yeah, because labels are helpful. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as the risen Savior, King of the universe, second person of the Trinity. That God, like, labels are useful and helpful, and to deny them is just so that you can be, slippery, so that you can be slimy and
the
Dillahunty Dodge.
The universe just created itself?
No. So now you're talking about something different. Now you're talking about the origin of the universe, which we don't have an explanation for because we can't get beyond the Planck time in the first place. But there are theoretical models that don't appeal to anything beyond the natural. Or in the case of a multiverse, it is a supernatural prospect in the sense that it's not our local universe's nature. But the answer, the issue is, we don't have an explanation for the origin of the universe, and we may never have one.
And you don't have an explanation for anything. Never have one outside of Scripture.
Let me just go to Genesis 1:1. We don't have an explanation. Yes, we do. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm sorry. That's just settled science. That's just settled, Tim. It's settled science.
Yeah.
We don't know is not an answer. Well, it is an answer.
Not having one doesn't mean you're justified in saying, well, I can't think of anything, so it must be a God.
No. See, straw man. Well, I can't think of anything, so it's got to be God. Like, people, the assumption that's being made here is that
there is no evidence.
Well, not only that there is no evidence, but like people were searching for answers and couldn't come up with anything, and then therefore God. Right, you know what I mean? Like, that's the assumption that's being made. Like, oh, well, mankind tried for millennia to discover the roots and origins, and because they didn't have telescopes and iPhones, they made up this God, and there's people who actually postulate that the early prophets like Moses or whatever, like, took mushrooms, and that's how they saw God in a burning bush. Like, there were psilocybin mushrooms in there, and like, come on, dude. Like, here's the deal. Man has always known of and acknowledged God's existence. The earliest recordings of man. Okay, so science came along and tried to explain God away. We gotta come up with something that can do away with this God, and that they tried that for millennia, and the closest that they've come to with success was Darwin. I mean, they've got it all upside down. It's a complete straw man argument.
Yep. Get this play.
Okay, so you're saying there's basically no point in believing until there's like solid evidence.
Correct.
Like,
and he says he can't know anything. Yeah,
he knows there's something. He knows nothing.
Yay, we like that. Good answer.
You shouldn't believe any claim until it is supported by sound arguments and empirical evidence.
Okay, why should I believe that then?
Right.
I haven't heard a sound argument, and I've heard no evidence. So I can disregard that claim. I mean, these people are so magnitudinously unaware.
You gonna be okay down there?
It's so funny.
And yes, I know somebody's going to write in that there's an exception to this in the realm of philosophy where we acknowledge properly basic ideas and blah, blah, blah. But I'm talking about epistemic claims within the natural world.
He's talking about you, Len.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And is it okay if I ask one more question, or did I use up all my time?
Oh, I'll let you do one more. We'll move on after that.
Oh, yeah. You pitch him some more softballs. We'd love for you to
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I just want to ask, so I know you've been doing this show for a long time.
Over 20 years.
What is it? What is it that you what do you desire from all of this?
For me, I like having the conversations. I like trying to educate people on skepticism, critical thinking, on presenting an image of who atheists are, so that we're not just baby killing monsters trying to destroy God's favorite country. And we get feedback from people who have changed their mind and come to realize that they didn't have good reasons for their belief, and so they were essentially forced by reason to give them up. That's about it.
If he applied that, he wouldn't believe anything that he claims to know. If he applied that to himself.
Yeah.
When scrutinized by a presuppositionalist.
Yeah. Matt Slick.
From my perspective, a lot of religious beliefs I consider harmful, and I'm trying to mitigate some of that harm.
By what standard?
And it works.
Yeah. How can there be harm?
Right. All there is physics.
Yeah.
All there is physics and stardust and biology. Like, what's harmful? By what standard?
It's weird.
But how is religion harmful?
How is religion harmful?
Well, I just did a whole show on, how
he's done 54 shows.
Teen pregnancy rates and all these things because our policy.
If religion is causing teen pregnancy rates to go up, why is that harmful? That's not harmful?
Yeah, and I mean the fact that that's
perspective, it's not harmful at all.
And that's just not factually correct. I mean, with the waning of Christianity and religion in this nation, teen pregnancy rates have gone up. Hello. Paging logic
are screwed up.
And if your religion tells you that, people of the same gender shouldn't love each other or whatever, that makes you advocate towards policies that marginalize individuals and marginalize their rights.
Why is it wrong to marginalize?
Yeah. And don't you, Matt, think it's a good idea to marginalize pedophilia, like people who like to pleasure themselves with children? I mean,
yeah.
Are those laws harmful as well?
Yeah.
It's just where he draws the line. Oh, well, we could go and watch the video from that Vietnamese atheist who's arguing for pedophilia to be okay.
He's a pedophobe. That's what he is. He's pedophobic.
Yeah.
Tells you that the God created the world, and this undermines science. If religion tells you that the world is yours to subdue and control, that undermines the potential of taking action against climate change issues and pollution. If your religion tells you that, I don't know,
slavery.
Well, yeah, it advocates for slavery. It advocates for genocide,
oppression,
countless
women,
bigotry.
Things, right?
I really.
Now, every single one of those claims, they have no argument against or for any of those moral positions.
What? Right. I mean, there's just physics, guys. There's just physics.
In any religion that wasn't harmful in many different ways. And most importantly, I care about whether or not something's true. Because if it's not true and you believe it, that means there's something in your brain that is fundamentally flawed because you have become convinced of something that's not true. And if that can happen for that idea, it can happen for all sorts of other ideas. If you have a flaw in your ability to reason, you might be an anti-vaxxer, a flat earther, a moon landing conspiracy theorist. You might be opposed to climate change. You
might be an atheist.
Yeah.
I think that we should stop working to help feed the poor people and let Blue Apron do it.
Right. Bad beliefs lead to bad behaviors.
And
bad behavior, Len.
Right. Why is it bad? By what standard?
Alex commented on our video. He says, Len, snotty disingenuousness is not good apologetics.
Oh, Alex, you're so adorable when you're virtue signaling. You're just cute. Aw, shucks.
Leonard.
Okay, Alex, grow up.
Have to share space on this planet. So what you believe informs your actions, and your actions affect other people around you, just as mine does and Don does. Everybody says. Everybody.
I understand that, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't it seem that like government does more harm than religion does?
Well, is the government doing more harm, or is religion doing harm through the government? By encouraging people to hold views and legislate those views. I mean, the government...
Does he even hear what he's saying?
No. He doesn't listen to himself talk, dude. Like, you could put together probably a 4-hour video of Matt debating himself. 2 hours of one side of an argument and 2 hours of another side over the time he's been doing this show. You could literally make a video of him debating himself. He's so self-refuting.
Donnie Jack says, like North Korea with their atheism view.
Yeah, weird.
It doesn't have an agenda. You know, in the United States, we have a democratically elected republic. And so you have representatives who go there. But it's not, apart from the Constitution, it's not like the United States has some goal of, let's be Jesus's favorite country. But there are people who vote who are convinced that we should be Jesus's favorite country.
Well, the United States does have a goal of at least U.S. hegemony.
That's possible. But not necessarily wrong. So if you have,
what do you mean?
So when you take a look at something like free speech laws, they're different around the world, and I think that some of the laws, for example, UK blasphemy laws, and this idea that you could be in trouble for causing offense, I find that offensive and asinine. Just so that somebody gets my favorite word out. So we can have arguments and disagreements about the best way to do free speech and what the limits should be. And it may be the case that the UK has the best model, and it may be the case that the US has the best model. It's probably not the case that Saudi Arabia has the best model. It's probably not the case that Bangladesh has the best model, where they are killing atheist bloggers. So we can have those discussions, but if you are convinced that you have the right case on free speech, then teaching that to the world is probably a good idea. You know, democracy may be the worst form of government apart from all the others, that famous quote. But we're not, you know, necessarily imperialistic, and if we were, I would oppose it.
You saying the U.S. is not imperialistic?
Correct.
But I mean, they've invaded the Middle East.
Yes.
Hi,
is
Peter.
It a war so that we conquer and own and build an empire?
Yes.
Okay, I fundamentally disagree.
Where is it?
Please go find the.
Well, hopefully they'll get done with Stephen from Tony.
Yeah. Let's just. Okay, so. I feel like we addressed everything that they kind of talked about there for quite some time. So, you know, we could by what standard, you know, that could literally be this whole show. Is every time they make a truth claim, every time that they make a morality claim, like why is it wrong to kill atheist bloggers in an atheistic worldview where there's just physics, bro?
Right. All right, Teddy from Gainesville.
All right, Teddy. Let's see what Teddy's up to.
Let's see.
Can't think of any other way, the reason that there's something. So we go through those fallacies. Then it's, oh, but why are you opposed to religion? Oh, because it does harm here, 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 and here.
Which you can't give.
Oh,
any.
but the fact that the world's getting better doesn't mean that we're anywhere near a goal, anywhere near.
We got a long way to go.
Utopia may be an incredible distance away, and will forever be beyond our reach.
He's assuming that there's a goal then. Utopia.
Evolution has a goal.
It's just going to be. It's just going to be whatever the universe. Well, we already know it's just going to implode, right?
What if evolution's goal is to wipe out atheism or homosexuality or black people?
Oh,
or Christians or anybody? What if that's the goal? Should we try to stop evolution?
All right. We will continue with the next caller. We'll give a shout out for Bible Thumping Wingnet Network. This is one of many podcasts, folks, on the Bible Thumping Wingnet Network. You can also hear Len Pettis, his Grappling with Theology podcast, J.D. Hall's podcast, and a bunch of other podcasts. Go to BibleThumpingWingnet.com. And if you appreciate this review that we're doing here on Sunday nights, please consider supporting Bible Thumping Wingnet. You can do that at the website as well. Last week, we got a new monthly supporter from our show, not the show that we did on Atheist Experience, but the video I did on Tracy Harris. So we have got a lot of good feedback from people saying that this is something that they would watch and like to have. So that's what we're doing. And if you appreciate it, share it, watch us, and consider helping us out financially if you would. So next caller.
Teddy in Gainesville, thanks for waiting.
Let's go, Teddy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Not the best.
Sorry.
I called probably about, I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or last week, but I spoke about hell at the time, and I was I come from an agnostic background. About 6 months ago, I just kind of went nuts and became very afraid of hell, and all I've really done in that time is read apologetics and counter apologetics and like every spare waking moment I have, and it's very miserable.
Teddy, which hell are you afraid of?
Well, mainly a Christian or a
why would you be more afraid of that than other potential bad afterlives?
Because I think there is slightly more reason to believe in those hells than the other ones that I've been presented with, and because they're the only ones that really say, at least generally speaking, if you don't have faith in this and believe it, then you will burn in hell and of forever.
And this is why we do these shows. This is why we've done apologetics for 5 years on the internet, Len. Christians who don't even understand the gospel. They don't even understand the simple message of the Bible.
Yep. Yeah.
Believe or you go to hell. Len, what's wrong with that?
Because Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world would know that without him they are condemned already. So, yeah, I mean, this is Teddy. Call us, please, Teddy in Gainesville, because this is a person who is no doubt leaning upon their own works for salvation. This is a person who looks at their life, sees their sin, and they rightly recognize I'm screwed. I mean, sorry for the crass language, but they're looking at themselves and they're saying, if If God sees me the way I see myself, I'm in huge trouble. And he's right, but there's nothing that you can do to earn your salvation. You need Jesus Christ. Trust in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sin. Someone like Teddy right now is sitting on the fence, right? I mean, would you agree with that? That this is a guy who is, and I'm not saying like he's sitting on the fence between belief or unbelief. I question whether he's regenerate, first of all. And I guess when I say he's sitting on the fence, I wonder if God is calling him and he's under the conviction of the Holy Spirit, or if, you know, atheists like him could pull him to the dark side. Well, he's in the dark side. Let's face it. Keep him in the dark side. You know what I'm saying?
My point is that he fears hell, so he must believe. You know, that I don't think.
Oh yeah.
People are regenerated because I don't want to go to hell, so I better believe this.
That's not a great motivation, but it's not a wrong motivation. Like, it's not wrong to believe in Jesus to not go to hell. But okay, so what is your hope? What is your hope for salvation? My faith in Jesus Christ alone for my salvation, right? And then you live to his glory. That's fine. I don't think that it's a great motivation. Like, you should come to Christ because he is worthy. He is worthy because of the sacrifice that he made, the great price that was paid for sin. Yeah, so I see what you're saying there. I'm sorry, I kind of misunderstood where you were going with that. But yeah, it's like you said, that shouldn't be the point of our evangelism. And maybe I'm going off again here too. So, but yeah, I see what you're saying there.
So basically, somebody has made a threat of a particular notion of hell, and I'm assuming you don't have any evidence that this hell is real.
Romans chapter 1 makes it clear that people not only does everyone know that God exists, but everyone knows that they are under the wrath of God. Everyone knows that.
Yep.
It's why you know that things are right and wrong.
And I believe it's Ecclesiastes chapter 12 that says all men fear death because they know what's on the other side. Why would you have...
I don't...
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, why would you fear death if death were it?
Right.
Evidence that hell is real, but
so somebody made a threat of a hell that scared you more than other threats of hell, despite the fact that there's no evidence that this place is real.
Well, so I'm concerned. I've gone over the apologetic arguments many times, and I think I spoke about this last time, and I'm not really concerned about like really any of the arguments that would prove a deistic God, because those don't seem convincing to me, as least as I've gone through them. Although I acknowledge the possibility that I could be wrong. Last week there was in between the last time I called, there was an apologetics group that came to my school. It was like it was some people with like Ravi Zacharias or whatever his name is, and several other
that's
people.
His name.
Yeah, and it was another guy's name started with a T. I actually spoke to him Friday night, like 20 minutes myself. Nice guy, but. Anyway, and then I went. They presented the argument for the resurrection, and I did a lot of studying with that, and I find a lot of convincing arguments that would both suggest that there is a lot of reason to believe, and there isn't a lot of reason to believe, and I mean it's kind of like driving me nuts because you have.
Sure. Have you watched my debate against Mike Licona on the resurrection?
Licona?
Mike Licona versus me.
Yeah, I did, and I felt I don't. It's just there's a very large amount of evidence, and it's very confusing to me.
Really, because Mike presented no evidence, no empirical evidence. He spent the first half of the debate arguing about Ouija boards and trash cans flying in order to poison.
Okay, so somebody did a poor job debating Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, right. Notice he doesn't. Did you watch my debate with Saitem Bruggenkate?
No, he,
You never saw that? You know, that never did you hear my debate with Matt Slick? No, you won't promote that. No.
Teddy, Rabbi Zachariah's group comes to your school, and so you think it would be a good idea to call the Atheist Experience next?
Well, you know, the thing is, he talked to evidentialists, and when it comes to Ravi, when it comes to, I'm guessing the T might have been maybe Frank Turk.
Yeah.
I wonder if I talked to him. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of as good as it gets for evidential apologists. There was a time where I was really blessed by Ravi's apologetic methodology and his arguments, and they're not wrong. They're just evidential. And as a Christian, they bolstered my faith as a good evidential apologetic should. So yeah, so again, here we're going to hear Matt make no counter arguments whatsoever.
He's just going to deny the ability to know anything.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and make people think that there was a supernatural component to serve as a justification for his only argument that he presented, which is basically the Bible claims that Jesus rose from the dead. What empirical evidence is there that Jesus existed, died, and came back to life?
Or you could say that about anybody in history.
Yep.
I mean, outside of written documents, how do we know anything about George Washington?
Well, that's the thing is I listen to history podcasts, as you know, Tim, and I listened to one about the Gallic Wars. It was about 9 hours of podcasting. Let's talk about the existence for the Gallic Wars. The evidence that ever happened. We're talking 9 extant documents that date about 1100 years after the events. Are you doubting the Gallic Wars happened, Matt Dillahunty? That's, you know, so look, evidence. Okay. The fact that the New Testament is obviously accurate based on the number of the manuscript evidence and the harmonization between those manuscripts, the Bible is accurate. The New Testament is an accurate document. So the question is, does accuracy equal truth? No, not necessarily. No, it doesn't. You know, but if you're going to bring that level of skepticism to historical documentation, the Book of Acts is a historical document. I'm sorry. The New Testament as a whole, as it exists as a whole, it's a historical document of events that actually took place in time. Okay? So you have no reason to believe anything before the invention of the copy machine. Before Xerox came out with the first copy machine, you can't trust anything that was done from the printing press because someone had to physically put letters in there, right? So, I mean, it's basically a more technologically advanced version of the telephone game at that point. So, you know, if you're going to make claims like, I need empirical evidence, you don't have empirical evidence for anything historically, anything, let alone the creation of the world and things that have happened from that point forward up to the point of the copy machine. You have and video recorders. But then what are we trusting in when we're talking about looking at Xerox machines and video evidence? We're talking about our senses. So you're trusting your senses and your reasoning to interpret those logically and accurately. And on what basis, it's just physics, bro, on what basis do you have to believe anything, atheist? You don't.
This is why I like the name of the show. It's the Atheist Experience. All they have is their own experience, and
right.
They don't have truth. They just have an experience.
Well, by the very, and I by the way, I agree that beginning part of the debate and a lot of other, it was very silly on his behalf. But there couldn't exist or not a reasonable expectation of empirical evidence other than historical evidence in that particular case.
I understand.
Would you disagree with that?
So We don't have time machines. However, so if you're going with historical evidence, what you have is a bunch of reports and claims.
Hold on. Didn't he say?
I know. We have to wait until he finishes.
Okay, just remember, we
my
don't.
My eyes lit up when he mentioned time machines too.
Okay. All right, you caught it. All right.
Time machines.
Occasion, those historical reports and claims have evidence supporting them. For example, I wasn't around when George Washington was president of the United States, and so I only have books full of claims, and we could just say, well, everything that's historical is just
okay. So I have a video on my channel. You can watch it. Go on the YouTube channel, search time travel, and Matt Dillahunty video where he was in a debate. And somebody presented him the argument of prophecy, and somebody laid out all the prophecy arguments, like the book of Isaiah, how we actually have copies of the book of Isaiah that date pre-Christ.
Yep.
And they talk about things that nobody could know about. They're obviously inspired documents, right? And one of Matt's responses was, well, we can't rule out time travel.
Yeah.
You might laugh at me, he says, but we can't rule it out. So instead of Bronze Age goat herders writing documents, we have Jewish men who lived 2,000 years ago who had access to time machines, possibly.
No. It's people 2,000 years in the future who went back 2,000 years into the past. And
tenet of faith, except that we have evidence for this, both people writing for and against political cartoons of George Washington. We have a string of connected incidents leading from that to now.
There's no church history. There's no church history.
Yeah, right. I mean, good night, dude. There is no book of antiquity or even from the medieval times forward to the Enlightenment, post-Reformational, Puritan periods. There is no book more historically reliable than the New Testament.
Right. And he said he can rely on the writings about George Washington
because we have political cartoons. Well, whoop-de-doo.
So the argument that's been made, maybe he's going to make it, is that all you have is the Bible and you don't have anything outside of the Bible. Well, we do have some things outside of the Bible. We even have things that some professing believers way back when wanted it to be in the Bible. Things were written about Jesus that were excluded from the Bible, like the Gospel of Thomas, or there's Judas. There's a book supposedly by Judas, and a whole bunch of other things.
Yep.
Other authors not included in the scriptures that talk about Jesus, talk about lots of aspects about his life. And so I just think that's important to point out.
Yeah. Yep.
The issue, as Hume would address it, is you have to ask yourself, is it more miraculous that this event happened as reported than that someone would be intending to deceive or that someone has become deceived? Now, the idea that George Washington was president, is it more likely that George Washington was actually president and the evidence is largely accurate, or that somewhere between the founding of the United States and now, somebody made a big lie and sold everybody on it? Which one of those is more preposterous? And Hume's advice is to reject the greater miracle. No.
Whoa! What is he talking about here? He was just saying that that's an argument from ignorance. What did the guy say earlier? Gosh, I got to start taking notes when we do this. So, because he just refuted what was said earlier about you can't just make a claim because there's not enough evidence. It's like saying, well, the butler killed the guy because who else could it be? I mean, that's literally his argument. Now, when an hour ago, I don't know what the timeline on the show is, but in the time we've been talking, he was saying that you can't argue like that. That's fallacious.
Right. Last week he was in a video with Tracy Harris talking about how you can't go with the best theory. You can't just go with the best theory you have.
Yeah.
It seemed weird.
What a walking contradiction.
Hume's advice is not accept the lesser miracle. That would be a mistake, but you should reject the greater miracle. And now, is it more miraculous that Jesus lived, died, and came back to life, or is somebody potentially mistaken or misrepresenting the events? Which one is more miraculous?
Well, how is that a standard for what is true and what is not true?
That is also what you call a false dichotomy, that it has to be one or the other, that there's not a third option, or that neither is viable.
Yeah. Well, now you're sounding like him, Len.
No. I'm logical.
Well, you're what?
I'm logical. He is not. Logic is the enemy of Matt Dillahunty.
It is more likely that it was a legend or a deception.
Okay, all right, stop, Teddy.
No, but
stop,
no,
Teddy,
but you
stop.
can't put a probability
Teddy, stop.
Sorry.
You say in one sense it's more miraculous that he rose from the dead. In what sense is it not more miraculous that he rose from the dead? What fantasy land that you could tie to reality, is it less miraculous that somebody rose from the dead than that people misrepresented, misport?
That's the beauty of the false dichotomy right there. The dude stepped in the trap and now he's got him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or believe something that wasn't true.
And who's to say that this guy Hume even existed?
Well, we have political cartoons.
Oh.
Because you couldn't put a probability on a one-time supernatural event.
Okay, that's not the way this works. Okay. When you are assessing a claim, you compare it to similar claims. How many times has anyone ever been confirmed to be resurrected from the dead after 3 days?
Ask Michael Brown.
So I don't.
Yeah, Todd Bentley's done it.
That's a fair claim because.
What's that?
All the time.
Yeah, I saw a video of it too. He's going to Olean, New York this summer to raise people from the dead.
Yeah,
I don't think any Christians would make the claim that.
I need to pause. If you stumbled upon this video and you don't know anything about charismania, that Len and I are against. We are against charismania. We are against those who. I'm getting tired, but those who claim to be able to raise people from the dead, those who claim that they have the gift and ability to heal people, the speaking in tongues, buffoonery, and all that, we're against that. So when we're talking about Todd Bentley and Dr. Michael Brown raising people from the dead, that's sarcasm on our part.
Mm-hmm.
This is something. I mean, other than the little bit in the book of Matthew, but what makes the claim that there is like any other time when anyone would rise from the dead.
It doesn't matter. See, this is the thing.
Event.
This is the thing. If you would just answer the question rather than talking about what Christians would or wouldn't.
He gets upset when you talk about Jesus. I mean, he's fired up now.
Weird.
Claim, we could actually talk about this in a way that allows us to determine what is reasonable to believe and what is not reasonable to believe. How many times has it ever been confirmed that someone died and rose from the dead 3 days later, or in this case, a day and a half later, that we're going to call 3 days?
Well, never, obviously.
Never.
Of course, he knows the argument. How many times has he been in a discussion where somebody said, "Oh, well, Jesus wasn't dead for 3 days"? How many times has he had to explain to him the Jewish culture counted days? Part of 2 days and 1 day could officially be called 3 days. But he's still got that in his toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
So given that we have 0 occurrences of this, how many claims are there that this type of thing has happened?
I don't know.
Several.
A lot. I mean,
not tons, but several. I mean, there are other, well, Jesus supposedly raised Lazarus from the dead. There are a number of died and risen saviors, although I'm not convinced that all of them necessarily fit, but at least one, and it seems to be several.
Okay.
Now, how many times has someone been convinced of something that was false, including miraculous things, when those things didn't actually ever happen?
A great number of times, obviously.
All day, every day for the entire history of humanity.
Yeah.
So, given that, the burden of proof is on the claim that this actually happened. And so to meet that burden.
Okay. Because people can be deceived, and because we can't believe anything. Be likely. Yeah. Being deceived.
Proof. You have to provide something more than here's some people, unnamed people, anonymous people that we can't.
He's lying. He's lying now.
Right.
The argument. Here's a man who is not comfortable with his ability to argue his point. So now he is going to purposely lie.
Yep.
That lived 2,000 years ago who claim that this happened. Well, by and large, when theists make the argument for the resurrections, the evidence that they sort, what's the most common piece of evidence cited by Christians to claim that the resurrection occurred?
The gospel?
No.
Oh, the empty tomb.
The empty tomb. Is there an empty tomb? Was that tomb filled with somebody before it was empty? Do we have any way to investigate that it was empty? Do we have any way to confirm it was empty? Do we have any way to
do we have a way to confirm a whole bunch of other things that history says happened? I would not say the empty tomb. That would be one. But we also have all the written documents of the New Testament, all the appearances of Christ after the resurrection. We have the life of the disciples, how they were affected. We have the history of the disciples who were in fear and hiding, and all of a sudden they became bold. We have the whole book of Acts. We've got the whole New Testament. We have the writings of the Old Testament prophecies about Christ. We still have those pieces of scripture that even were like fulfilled prophecy. That's another argument. So there's more than the empty tomb argument.
There was somebody in there. Do we have any way to confirm what happened between the time somebody was in there and it was empty? Is there any way to investigate the empty tomb?
There's not, but wasn't there?
Correct.
That it was like that. Okay.
Now, if you look at the gospel accounts of what happened on that Easter Sunday, do they agree on what happened?
Oh, no, he's not going to go there.
Not with all the details.
Not with hardly any of them. They don't agree whether the stone was rolled away ahead of time or not. They don't agree on whether or not there was an angel outside the tomb or not. They don't agree on who was there first. They don't agree on who was told first. They don't agree on anything. And so you have to get rid of all that fluff, which is why they go to the empty tomb, because the only thing that they mostly agree on is that the tomb was empty. One of them doesn't actually agree that the tomb was empty. When they enter the tomb, there's a young person in there that may or may not be an angel. So it's not empty. So the thing that they all agree on is that somebody went to this gravesite, and maybe the stone was already rolled away and maybe it wasn't. And Jesus's body, which had been in there a day and a half before, was no longer there.
Now he's just given the argument that the Gospels don't agree on the details of the resurrection. And
really,
go ahead. What's that?
Really?
Yeah. And here's the thing. If they give an account of the show that they did today, both these men who are on this show, they write down an account of what happened on this day, February 18th. And Matt says that, hey, we did a show, and he mentions a whole bunch of people in the crowd. And then when the other gentleman, whatever his name is, Dan, I think, Don, when he writes his account, he doesn't mention the crowd at all. He doesn't, the studio crowd. He talks more about his shirt. He talks about the statistics that he read in the beginning,
Right.
and the guy who called from Japan or Tokyo, or whatever it was. They don't give the same account.
Yeah.
Or it's,
well, imagine this, Tim. If
well, let me put it this way.
Go ahead.
They're both writing an account of what happened, and everything that they're saying is true, but they don't cover the same points. They don't have the same perspective. They're not focusing on the same things but they are describing their experiences, and all the gospels come together and fit together. There's no contradictions.
Well, you know what they would say if the gospels all agreed with each other?
Mm-hmm.
They were just copied.
Yep.
Don't you see? It's a telephone game.
Yeah.
That's all they would say.
Yeah. So your point is that the different perspectives is evidence for resurrection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they don't have to be identical accounts.
Mm-hmm. I've seen better magic tricks on crap shows. Now,
Yeah.
if this is something that we can't investigate, can we then say Jesus didn't exist, Jesus didn't rise from the dead? No, we can't say that. But they have a burden of proof to meet. And here's the stunner. You ready?
Yeah.
Isn't Jesus' resurrection the single most important fact about Christianity?
Yeah.
Isn't God supposed to be way, way smarter than all of us?
Yeah.
If God wants us to accept the most important fact, the resurrection, why the hell hasn't he provided any evidence?
Here comes the Calvinistic hammer down. Here comes the Calvinistic apologetic. First of all, Romans 1.
Oh, hold on.
Go ahead.
Let the guy finish. I want to hear how the guy answers before we address this.
Where is the documentation? Why isn't God presenting himself to us and saying, yes, it's true, I said so? Why is it that we have to go back to an ancient book where there's no Bible, New Testament 2.0, no clarification, and we look at the accounts and they don't agree? Why is their God silent about the single most important facet of their religion?
I mean, I don't have an answer for that.
Nobody does.
No, wait.
Nobody
does. Nobody does, Len. Nobody has an answer for that.
Okay, so he's saying if the resurrection is the most important doctrine in Christianity, and it is, and if God, what did he say? If God is all knowing,
he's more powerful than.
Yeah, right. Okay, so then why didn't he give us evidence? He did. In fact, you mention that evidence, but you disregard the evidence. Why do we have to go to an ancient book? That's your evidence, dum-dum.
Why do you go to a science book? Why do you go to a science book?
Right. You're not in a lab doing experiments to make sure physics is something that's an actual thing. You just take it on blind faith, you ding-dong. So look, again, we can get back into the whole idea of textual criticism, which I guarantee you this so-called former pastor, 25-year Baptist, I guarantee you he never read Bruce Metzger, J. Harold Greenlee, James White, even what's his name, the atheist, the one that James White debated. Now I can't think of his name for some reason, but
Silverman.
Yes. No, not Silverman. No, not Silverman.
But he debated.
Yeah, he did debate David Silverman, but a textual critical scholar. He's never examined textual critical study, and yet he's saying we have to go back to this ancient book because it's old, it's therefore unreliable. Right? Well, hold on a second. Is that how you treat ancient Egyptian history? We can't trust this. We can't trust these hieroglyphs. They were carved in stone by Bronze Age goat herders. I mean, it's such a ding-dong, lazy, intellectually dishonest, and deceptive argument. you know, he lays out these parameters, this syllogism. If the resurrection is important and God is this way, why don't we have evidence? We have evidence. You simply choose to reject it, like all the truth you reject in your unrighteousness, Matt Dillahunty. And you will never debate anyone of substance on this matter of textual criticism. I guarantee you he would never debate someone like a James White or even myself. I could mop the floor with this nonsense with what little bit I know of textual critical studies. So, you need something? Which one?
Very good. Can I just interject, because
Sure.
this is something that you know, Tracy gave me a good answer with this too, but it's just something I've been I don't want to say like tortured with, but just like something that has been gnawing on me, because I go through these arguments again and again, and I'll find I don't want to say that I'm gullible, but I'm kind of gullible, and I'll find like the slightest argument in either direction and immediately do a 180, at least on a superficial level, and I'm so terrified of,
You don't have to be worried about that, Teddy. So here's the thing: there's lots of people who would
consuming my life.
There's a lot of people who would be viewed as gullible by outsiders and perhaps by themselves. As long as you recognize that you have a tendency to not do a detailed critical examination of something, to not be sufficiently skeptical. As soon as you realize that, then it should be pretty easy to train yourself to say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. I don't have enough information to conclude this. I'm going to stop being terrified and stop accepting things until I have really, really good reasons, and not just when some apologist says something that I don't personally know how to refute, because that's one of the dirty little secrets about apologists. Most believers sitting in the pews have no idea what their Bible says. They have no idea about the history of their religion. They don't know how to think skeptically. They don't have the tools to investigate, which is why when Josh McDowell writes evidence that demands a verdict and hands it to everybody in the churches, they're like, yeah, look, this smart dude just vindicated everything I believed, and now I don't have to do any work. Nobody knows this stuff. So don't beat yourself up for not.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not.
He's not wrong about
and
that.
His show proves that.
Yeah.
The callers are so bad that we think they're plants.
Yeah.
People are ignorant.
Yeah. Ignorance is, and it's in the age of where we have so much information available to us, the church should be the most educated of all people, in particular on our own belief system. And we're not. And so he's right. Christians are by and large really ignorant and fairly gullible. You know, just look at the word faith movement. You want to talk about gullibility? Good night.
Flat earthers.
Yeah, flat earthers. But yeah, he's not wrong. But look, the apologists are a tool to the church to that end. I mean, look, we are, as Christians, we have to be Bereans when an apologist gives us their book and examine their apologetics against the scripture. The scripture is the infallible rule of faith. But yeah, he's not wrong about that. But you know, he's making it like, oh, apologists are just being deceptive, and no.
Something, you were curious, you called someone who may know, and I may be wrong, or I may not know. But when it comes to the fear of hell thing, for me, it was really simple. Why am I afraid of this particular hell more than another? Well, it's because it's the one that I was raised with, and it's the one that is most popular in the country I live in. If you had been raised in a Muslim country, you would probably have a fear of a Muslim afterlife.
Genetic fallacy.
And don't they have a hell also? It's similar to Christianity.
Well, so I'll say something, like, I don't come from a really religious family at all. Like, they're super atheistic, agnostic.
You live in Gainesville, Florida. You're surrounded by religion, Christianity in particular, all the time.
I'm just going to college here. I grew up in like Jewish South Florida, so but like atheist Jews kind of. But
you shouldn't have moved.
You know, it's because
you want to wrap? You want to go to the next caller or what?
How long have we been going for?
We've been going for a good hour and a half.
Well, let's listen uninterrupted. Let's not interrupt for anything redundant, okay? We'll just trust our audience can pick up any contradictions from the previous 2 phone calls, and hopefully we can wrap this up in like the next half hour doing it that way.
All right, let's go to the next caller.
They spent a lot of time with Teddy, didn't they? Oh, there's Joey.
Joey from Akron, Ohio. All right.
You know, there's not a lot of good reason why you should.
Oh, actually, I've gone way further than that. I think the idea of a soul is the single most obviously wrong and dead subject in all of theology because of what we know about identity in the brain, the fact that physical manipulation of my brain can fundamentally turn me into a different person, different memories, different personalities, different beliefs. We know from patients who've had hemispherectomies, splitting the corpus callosum, that you end up with 2 distinct personalities communicating independently. One of them believes in God, one of them doesn't. You can look up V.S. Ramachandran's talk at, I forget which conference it was, but it's probably almost a decade ago now. Everything that has been attributed to the soul has either neither been connected to anything like a soul or identifiable as a function of the brain, a function of what the mind does. So when my brain dies, do we have any good reason to think that anything substantial that makes me me continues to live or exist in any sense at all? Because if we manipulate my brain, does that mean that there's, you know, like, let's say that my atheism is a result of some brain damage because
I was going to say that, but I held off. Sorry.
To be a fundamentalist Christian, maybe I got hit on the head, maybe something happened in my brain, I've got a tumor. It's not a tumor. That's the worst Arnold impression ever. It's not a tumor.
I thought it was Jewish doctors in Florida.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Arnold would have been. It's not a tumor. So that's what makes me an atheist, is this tumor. Does that mean that there's a Christian soul trying desperately to manipulate my brain and failing to do so because of this tumor, because of this thing in my brain? If so, when I die, doesn't that soul go on to heaven because it was a Christian soul that was trying to do this and something about the physical brain blocks it? And if that's the case, then the soul notion becomes even more useless because now it has nothing to do with what I do, because maybe what I do is, how do you tell the difference between somebody who's got a soul that wants to do bad or a brain that wants to do bad with a soul that wants to do good? And by the way, in those hemispherectomy patients where you end up with 2 distinct personalities, does God stick an extra soul in there? Does the soul get split in half and half of it goes to heaven and half of it goes to hell? I mean, and Sam Harris has pointed out that in the case of twinning in the fetus, does the soul get implanted at conception and then it splits into twins? Does God add an extra soul there? Do they have a half a soul or maybe a fourth of a soul if we get quads? And then sometimes the twin is reabsorbed. And so if that happens and there was a second soul, does that mean now there's a person with 2 souls? None of this makes any sense. And all of it is contraindicated by what we know about the brain, about how my personality manifests, about how my desires manifest. And
I'm not surprised he doesn't believe in a soul. I mean, he doesn't believe in anything that's not natural.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, if God created everything, then either everything is natural or everything is supernatural, right? But, yeah, I mean, honestly, the only way to critique this is to just tread over old paths that we've already walked here about knowledge and science and his claims and how he can know anything. And the thing is, like, what frustrates me is if he was a Christian, and I have no reason to believe he was, at least a knowledgeable one, he would know the teachings on these things. And every time he speaks on Christianity, he demonstrates his ignorance of it. That's what's so frustrating.
All right. Lena and
Lene. I bet it's Lene.
Lene.
It's basically a bunch of fancy words saying, I study how old rocks are and where they come from, using radiogenic isotopes. So basically the whole underpinning of my field is based on radioactive decay. And I hear so many creationists calling and saying, I don't understand radioactive decay, and therefore the Earth is 6,000 years old. I thought I would just do as quick as I can and as accurate as I can, a quick primer that should be understandable to a layman of radioactive.
How many minutes you're talking about?
I don't know. Hopefully under 10.
Oh boy. Oh, that's a lot.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Go for it, because
I ain't gonna do it. Hopefully under 10. I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah. Again, it gets down to your evidence versus my evidence, and
and whatever she's gonna present, I'm sure that our young Earth creationist apologetic friends can look at the same evidence and come to a different conclusion.
Yeah, just the frustrating thing is like, well, they don't understand these things, so they say, oh, therefore it's 6,000 years. That's a complete straw man of the representation of why it is I believe in a young Earth.
Well, you could say to an atheist, well, the reason why you don't believe my evidence is because you don't understand it. And
therefore, atheism.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly the most perfect argument you could come up with for what that woman is about to say. Well, the reason you're not a Christian is because you're too dumb to understand my arguments. You hillbilly. You shouldn't have gone to Gainesville, Florida with all those hillbilly Christians.
No. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Go to BibleThumpingWingnut.com for more content. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And we're going to try to do this next week as well. Right, Len?
Yeah, man, Lord willing. I mean, I don't have any plans for next weekend that I'm aware of at this point. So, yeah.
All right. Give me your feedback. BibleThumpingWingnut@gmail.com. Or comment below. I might find it below, but if you do email me, I will definitely see it and read it. Maybe we could answer your question in next week's Google Hangout. So there you go. Till next week. Take care. See you. Goodbye.